Okay, let's jump right in. We're going to unpack a really fascinating and kind of strange story from an ancient text. And what's wild is that it reveals this surprisingly practical, timeless pattern for how miracles can actually work. And it all kicks off with a massive crisis. So picture this. You've got three allied armies from Israel, Judah, and Edom marching through this bone-dry desert. Their goal? To attack their enemy, Moab. But there's a huge problem. After 7 days of marching, they've completely run out of water. They are literally on the brink of collapse, about to die of thirst before they even get to the battlefield. It's a complete and total disaster. So naturally, in their absolute desperation, they call on the prophet Elisha. And his solution from God is, well, it's bizarre. First, he asks for a musician to come and play some music. And then he tells these exhausted, dehydrated soldiers to start digging ditches all over the place. A musician and a shovel. This is the central mystery we're going to solve. What on earth is going on with this strange, seemingly illogical plan? All right, so our first clue lies in that very first command, the one for the musician. It seems totally random, right? But it's actually the key to everything that's about to happen. Here's what the text actually says. Before he utters a single word of prophecy, Elisha says, "Bring me a minstrel." Now, you have to notice the sequence here. The music plays first, then the divine inspiration comes. This wasn't just some background music to set the mood. Something much more important was happening. The original Hebrew word here is menegen, which specifically means someone who plays a stringed instrument, like a harp or a lyre. And what the analysis shows is that the music wasn't there to magically summon God. No, it was there to prepare the prophet. See, just before this, Elisha had been furiously yelling at the idolatrous king of Israel. He was agitated, he was angry. The music's purpose was to calm his very human spirit, to create the right internal environment for him to hear a divine message. And this next part, absolutely crucial. The text says, "The hand of the Lord," or Yad Vejab in Hebrew, came upon him. This isn't just a poetic phrase, it signals a major shift. It means the prophet is moving from speaking his own frustrated thoughts to becoming a direct channel for God's communication. The music was the catalyst for that transition. So you can really see the contrast. On one side, you've got Elisha's completely human, totally justified anger. And on the other, you have the spiritual quiet and alignment needed to receive revelation. The musician, he was the bridge between those two states. So step one of the miracle was basically getting the human noise out of the way so the divine instruction could be heard clearly. Okay, let's move on to the next clue. All right, now for the second piece of this puzzle, that absolutely baffling command for thousands of exhausted soldiers to start doing manual labor in a scorching, bone-dry desert. So once Elisha is in that right spiritual space, he delivers the message from God. And it's this: start digging. I mean, can you imagine being one of those soldiers? You're dying of thirst, your energy is gone, and this is the command you get? It must have sounded like pure madness. It required a staggering amount of trust. And when you look at the original Hebrew, it's even more intense. The phrase is gibim gibim. In Hebrew, repeating a word like that is for emphasis. It doesn't just mean dig a few ditches. It means dig trench after trench. I want you to fill this entire valley with reservoirs. This wasn't some small symbolic act. It was a massive physical act of preparation based on nothing but a promise. And this is where we see a recurring pattern that pops up all over the place in these texts. It goes like this. Step 1, you get a divine promise. God says what he's going to do. Step 2, there's a command for human preparation. People are told to act first, before the miracle is anywhere in sight. And only then, step 3, does the miraculous provision show up. The people actually have to participate in their own rescue. So we've got the spiritual alignment and we've got the physical preparation. Now the final clue is all about the nature of the promise itself. It's what makes this miracle completely undeniable. The prophecy here is just wow. It's incredibly specific. God says, oh, the water is coming, but let me be perfectly clear. You won't see any of the normal signs. There won't be any storm clouds, there won't be any wind, and there won't be any rain. The specific Hebrew words used here are ruach for wind and geshem for a heavy downpour. By explicitly ruling those out, the prophecy is slamming the door on any attempt to explain this away. No one could say, oh, we just got lucky with a flash flood. God is intentionally setting the stage so that when the water shows up, there is absolutely zero doubt about where it came from. Okay, we've gathered all our clues: the musician, the ditches, the impossible promise. Now let's put it all together and solve the mystery of the prophet's strange plan. So here it is. The big takeaway is this three-step pattern. First, spiritual alignment. You have to quiet down all the noise, both internal and external, so you can clearly hear the instruction. Second, obedient preparation. You have to actually act on that instruction. You have to dig the trenches even when the valley is dry and it makes zero logical sense. And third, and only after the first two, comes invisible provision. The miracle arrives from a source you couldn't see and would have never expected. And trust me, this isn't some one-off thing. Once you see this pattern, you start seeing it everywhere in the biblical texts. Remember the story of the poor widow? She's told to gather a ton of empty jars before her little bit of oil multiplies to fill them all. The priests have to step into the flooding Jordan River before the waters part. The servants at the wedding, they have to fill those giant stone jars with boring old water before it becomes the best wine. The preparation always comes first. So you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool story, but what does a 3,000-year-old tale about soldiers digging in the desert have to do with me today? Well, this is where it gets really personal. There's this one line from the source material that it captures the entire idea so perfectly. It says, "Faith sometimes looks like digging empty trenches in a dry valley." Think about that. Digging trenches in your own life, it's about doing the hard work. It's about preparing for that breakthrough, that provision, that answer you're hoping for, even when there isn't a single cloud in the sky. It's the act of making space for a miracle before you have any tangible proof that it's even on its way. So, as we wrap this up, the question this ancient story leaves us with is a really profound one. In your career, in your relationships, in your own personal growth, in the dry valleys of your life, where exactly are you being asked to pick up a shovel and start digging?